Hello, my name is Edward Kelly, and I have the honor of serving as your General Secretary Treasurer of the IAFF. Today, we're going to try to make IRS compliance fun again. One of the most important things we do when we manage our locals is ensure that we're on sound financial footing. Ensuring that we're in good financial condition requires us, as registered nonprofits, to file the IRS Code 990 form every year shortly after the close of your fiscal year. If we have a local that is on the non-compliant list for 3 consecutive years, they run the risk of losing their nonprofit status, which essentially means it would be like throwing union dues out the window. In order to ensure that we're doing everything we can to educate you, our membership, to ensure that you're in good financial condition as a local, we're going to present to you some vital information on IRS Form 990 compliance. Keep in mind that it's every elected member of a local's responsibility to be a fiduciary for that local, not just the treasurer. All of you are in charge of your treasury. And making sure that that IRS Form 990 is filed is good fiscal practice that's mandatory under the IRS code. With us today is our comptroller, Ryan Weber, who is also a certified public accountant. He's also the assistant to the General Secretary Treasurer and has been doing our work here at the IFF now for over 6 years. We also have Bill Dodd with us, the treasurer of the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Local 710. He's also a tax expert who has worked with over 100 of our IFF locals to get them back compliant with the IRS after being on that non-compliant list. With that, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Thank you, Ed. What we're going to talk about today is relevant to all United States locals, and large or small. So we're going to walk through a few things here. We're going to start off with looking at the EIN number. It's critical that when you step into the role for secretary treasurers or treasurers stepping into the role, even presidents or other officers, a great question to ask is, what is our business EIN number, the employer identification number? So we're going to walk through how you might find that when you first step into office. You might find the notice originally issued by the IRS. If you can't find that, check with your bank. Hopefully that has been established. Some locals have set it up under the social security number of one of the officers. That should be changed immediately with the EIN number that you have received from the IRS. You might find a previously filed tax return, or if you're still in question, check with the IRS with the phone number provided in the slides. As I should mention as well, these slides are available on our website under the General Secretary Treasurer Resources. So we're going to walk through how to obtain an EIN. Let's say you have looked, you cannot find an EIN number. You've checked with the IFF as well. We do not have it on file. The next step would be to obtain a new EIN number. You can assume it just has not been done. So the link will be on the slide deck as well for going to the IRS website, or you can always search for just that term EIN to go find the application. So going to the link brings you to a few steps here. Clicking on the apply now, it's good to read the other steps as well, just to know the kind of documents that you'll need before you get started on this. It will ask for your social security number. It just needs to have a real individual that the IRS can be in contact with. So following through all the prompts that you'll see as you go through all these sites, the only option here, OK. So select that and then begin your application. It is a fairly quick process, I should say as well. It probably 10 to 15 minutes to walk through this. We'll hit the key moments here at the end of what you need to do when you're through the slides. So on here, select the bottom option there to view additional types, the tax-exempt organization. So all of us are considered you'll hear synonymous terms, nonprofit organization, tax-exempt organization. For the sake of what we're looking at here, the IRS is referring to our organizations as tax-exempt. Another long menu of potential types of organizations, and same thing here, we fall under the other nonprofit tax-exempt organization. Another prompt that will just continue. This was another good question that we get from several locals on what button to select. Starting a new business, if that's accurate for you. Otherwise, for banking purposes, is another good option on there. But as long as you have gone through the tests and have not found your EIN number, it's good to start with starting a new business menu option. Here's where, so we see we went from the menu at the top has those check boxes. We have completed step 1 there of the identify. So now we're on to step 2, authenticate. And here's where it's asking for you to provide who you are. So you would select that you are an individual going through these prompts. And here's where we'll ask for your personal information, which you do have to put in there. It's just to have the IRS have a face, real person to talk to. That completes the authentication step. We're on to step 3, the address of the organization. So here you'd want to have something pre-established just to alleviate problems in the future, to not have somebody's personal address who may not be an officer down the road. It's good to have a physical location for the local to have the IRS send all their mailings to. Another prompt here as well. We're now on to step 4, a few additional details, the name of your organization. So putting in there what your local name is and how the IRS should correspond with you. This is another option of the old school form. The SS4 is the paper form of what we just walked through. I should say also at the end of that online application, it will prompt you to say how you want to receive it. You could get the PDF version of it right away, and it's just that simple. You have an EIN number there, or you could say please mail it to the address that you have put it in there for them to mail it to. So those are your options at the end of the online process. If you prefer the mail form and tracking it through certified mail, that is available as well with this form SS4. Same kind of information it's asking for, just in the paper format. Once you have obtained your EIN number, it's important that you send that to the IAFF, to the GST's office, because that is the next step toward you actually being a nonprofit. At this point, you have an EIN number. The IRS considers you a corporation, a taxable corporation. So in order to be tax exempt and to put your dues paying members' dollars to the best to the best work, you want that tax exempt status as well. And we can add that to your local, to your business by being part of our group exemption. So you email that to us, and we add you to our group exemption, and that starts you on the right course. And now we'll turn it over to Bill.
So now we need to look on the IRS site and the IFF site to see if we have compliance. Everybody has an EIN number, hopefully now, and we have about 800 locals that have been revoked because they haven't filed tax returns. So we need to have somebody from every organization go to both of these spots and just double check and make sure you're not on that list. So if you click the link here on the slide, it'll take you to the IFF site, and down there in the red box you'll see that there's IRS revocation list. That'll take you to a spreadsheet that has all the locals that the IFF shows as being revoked. If you're on there, make note of that, check the EIN, make sure it's the same one that you have record of. A lot of times we have locals with multiple EIN numbers and they don't always match. Once you've done that step, we need to go to the IRS. There's the link to do that. That'll take you to this search engine for the IRS. If you know your EIN number, just click it there in the search term on the right-hand upper box. If you don't, you can do the middle box, which says search by, type in something like International Association of Fire or just fire, and then down in the city, make sure you put your city and the state, and then hit the search button. If you did the search by name, you're going to get a whole lot of responses down there, down below, so you'll have to scroll through them and see if you can find yours. If you do it by EIN number, you're just going to have one. So right here, this one came up as International Association of Firefighters, where it's scribbled out in black would be local 710 Coeur d'Alene, and then down below that would tell you your city and then the United States. So that's how you can kind of find yours. If you select that, it'll take you to the history for your local. So as you can see, this local has been revoked, and down below it shows that they filed a 990N for 2009 and 2012. They didn't file one for 13, 14, or 15. That's why they were revoked in 2016. If this was your local, I would suggest you print this sheet off because you're going to need it down the road to try and get reinstated. If you're a 990N filer, you should have all the information on there. They do a pretty good job of updating that. If you're a 990 or a 990EZ filer, they're very slowly inputting that information. So if you put your EIN number in it and it shows there, but there's nothing there in the history, don't worry about it. They just probably haven't uploaded it yet. To determine which return you need to file, the IRS has this threshold. If you're under $50,000 for 3 years, you basically do an average of those 3 years. If you're under $50,000, you get to do the 990N. So if you run that math and it comes out that you're just over the $50,000, don't worry, you can go back and recalculate that number by reducing your revenue by the amount you pay the IFF and per capita. The pass-through money can come off of your income. So you do that again, and if you're under the $50,000 then, you get to file the 990N. If you're over that $50,000 and under $200,000, you do the EZ, and if you're over $200,000, you do the full 990. And then there's also a matrix for your assets too, for what money you have in the bank or buildings and that kind of stuff. And then another key here is these returns are due the 15th day of the 5th month following your year end. Most 990N filers are going to be September 30 year ends because that follows the IFF. Some of them may still be whatever they were originally set up on. So you just need to know what your year end is and then get that return filed as soon after the year end as you can to make sure you're compliant. If you're a 990N filer, you can go to the slide here and click there and it'll take you to the spot to file it, or you can go to the irs.gov and in the search bar type in 990N and it will get you to the form. This is the login for it. If you've never done this before, you need to sign up as a new user with the create account. If you've already done this in the past, you can just log in on the right hand side. For the first time users, you need to put your name in there and an email address to set up the account. They're going to email you a verification code just to confirm you're you. Then once you get through that, you'll need to set up a user ID and a password. Keep this because you're going to need it for years down the road every time you go to file. You don't have to keep resetting your password. Once you get that set up, then you're going to click through the continues to where you get to set up the e-postcard profile. The first year you do it, you need to manage the e-postcard profile, which is basically entering your EIN number, your mailing address, and your information. If you've already done this and you went through the login route, you can just do the managed Form 990N submission and move right to the form. In here, you're going to need to determine whether or not you're just filing this as an exempt organization or a preparer. If you're just filing it for your local, you can do exempt organization. If you're going to file it for your exempt, your local, and let's say your local has a charity, you're going to choose preparer, so you can do both. Or if you're on the board of another nonprofit in your community, you can do preparer, so that way you can do both. And as you click continue and go through there, it's going to ask you to set up the account, so you'll enter the EIN numbers, the addresses, and basically set up your organization in their system. You're going to need to take note of the start year and end of year. The 990N filings can only be filed for the current year. You can't go back and file missing returns. If your local was on that revoked list, you're going to need to get it reinstated. If you don't, the IRS can come back at you as a for-profit corporation and assess taxes against those open years in the future. So you want to go back and get it retroactively reinstated to where it was as if you were never revoked. If you follow this link, it'll take you to the IFF site and give you a summary of what's needed to be done. The procedures for this are followed in the IRS Revenue Procedure 2014-11. And there's three options, or three sections we get to follow to get reinstated. You need to determine based off of your status which one of those options you get to follow. Everybody's going to need to file the Form 1024 to get reinstated, the Form 8718, which is the user fee, which is $600 per entity, and then depending upon where you fall under that revenue procedure, you're going to need to go back and file 990 or 990EZ returns. The Form 1024, based on either Section 4, 5, or 6 from that revenue procedure, whichever one of those you follow, will dictate the way you do it. So you need to write at the top of it, most importantly, Revenue Procedure 2014-11, and then either streamlined reinstatement or retroactive reinstatement based on which procedure you're following. It's a 20-page document. We only really need 7 pages of it. And you're going to go through the first 5 pages filling out information as it pertains to your local. As you get through down to page 5, page 5 is the financial side of it. If you did 990 returns to file with this, these numbers need to tie to those returns. You don't want to have them off and have the IRS make you do it all over again. And the other important thing here is the current tax year. As you can see on this one, this was filed in 2013. The current tax year needs to be within 60 days of when you mail this off. And then you'll have the 3 prior years before that. Down below that is going to be a balance sheet. They just basically want to know what you have in the bank as of the date that current year ended for you. And then down, a question I get a lot is, how do you fill that part out? So if all you have is bank accounts, it goes under cash. The liabilities, unless you have debt for something, is going to be 0. And then the net assets or fund balance is going to be the same as basically what your cash account is. Then page 6 is going to be filed with return, but it'll be blank. So you need to print that off, just don't need to fill it out. Then you're going to jump to page 9, which is the Schedule C for labor organizations. And on that form, it's 3 questions at the top. You can put down the same information you've already put in the Form 1024. It basically just asks what you do. Line 2 doesn't apply to us, we're not fishermen. And then line 3, they want to know if we're underneath a collective bargaining agreement. So if you have a contract, check yes and attach a copy of that contract. If no, then click no. The Form 8718 is how they track your user fee. It's $600 for every local, doesn't matter on your size anymore. These are the sections of that revenue procedure that we follow. So you're going to want to go through there, and there's 3 different options. This is option section 4. If you were revoked within 15 months of when it was dated and or posted on that IRS site, you can follow this option if you haven't been revoked before. This one is the easy way through. You don't have to do any of the 990s, and you just basically fill out the 1024 and send it in. If option 4 didn't work, you can try section 5. Basically, it's still within that 15-month time period. This one, though, you do need to file the 990 returns and attach a reasonable cause statement of why you didn't file. And usually it's, we had a change of officers and the information wasn't passed on to the new group. If neither one of those sections applied, you can go to section 6, which is basically the catch-all. These ones, you need to file 990 returns for all the years, attach a reasonable cause statement that includes the 3 years you were revoked, and send that off. The other thing on here is the 990s. If you're required to do those, you need to do them for the years you were open. For the example we had, they were revoked in 2016. You'll have to go back and do a 990 for 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018, all open years in the IRS, and send those off. You want to send those off before you actually send off the Form 1024 so that they're on file. The other thing is, if you do this yourself, you want to be diligent in checking your local's P.O. box for about the next 6 months, because as the IRS goes to process this, if they have a question, they're going to send your local a letter and give you 30 days to respond to it. If you don't respond in that 30 days, you lose your $600 and you have to start over. So you just want to make sure that you're checking the mailbox about every week just to make sure you don't miss that letter. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan for the IFF compliance.
The IFF Constitution and Bylaws, Article 13, Section 9, asks the locals to submit an annual form within 180 days of their fiscal year end. And that form is intended to also help with these compliance matters. In question number 10, it asks this very topic of whether you have filed your 990. So when officers fill this out, they will see if they answer no, well, there's a reason it's there. And when that form comes back to our office, we can start that dialogue of asking why that hasn't been formed. As we mentioned, there's a 3-year window of continual non-filings that create this revocation in the IRS's eyes. So we need to stay on top of that. And this is step 1 of making sure this form is filed with the IFF annually. And by doing that, it will keep us all on the right track. I'll pass it over to Ed.
Thank you. And hopefully this video was helpful in ensuring that your local is compliant with IRS and IAFF reporting obligations every year. And thank you to Bill and Ryan for lending your expertise to us. We promise to make IRS code reporting fun again. I'm not sure we pulled that off, but keep up the good work. What we're doing here is very important. We have to be structurally sound financially in order to be successful in the mission of the IFF. Thank you. God bless. Be you. Be strong. Be firefighters.